Today we are talking with Carmella Lowkis. Hi, Carmella.
Hi, great to be here. Thank you for having me,
Our,
Lauren.
and you're the author of A Slow and Secret Poison.
I am
And this
indeed.
and this is a dark mystery.
Yes, yes, a gothic mystery, a bit of a thriller, and a bit of romance in there as well. It's got everything.
Okay. Um, First, tell us about. I know that arrives in her new role as a gardener. Uh, Tell us a little bit about where she arrives and how she arrives. First of
Yes,
all, wait a minute. I want to back up and say that I'm very intrigued with the very first line of the book. And if you want to tell us what that is.
yes, I should have brought a copy with me. I don't have it to hand.
I'll,
Um,
I'll read it. I'll read it.
oh,
I'm
thank
just
you.
so intrigued. What a great way to start a mystery. The first line says, "We put Charlie in the grave today, in the ground today."
That's it.
Right.
I knew it was something like that.
First, well, tell us now about V and when she first arrives and where is she, and why is she arriving?
Yeah, so V's a young female gardener in the 1920s, which is obviously a little unusual. It's normally a man's role to be a professional gardener. And she's looking for a way to get away from her hometown of Cardiff in Wales because of a mysterious past that she's fleeing from. And so she's come to Hartlepool Manor to answer the job advert for a new gardener. And this is a big Wiltshire country house estate, but it's fallen on hard times, so very limited staff. She's the only gardener to look after these massive grounds. And she arrives there in the dead of night by taxi because no one's come to pick her up from the station. And as she's arriving, there's this horrible dead deer in the road that's blocking her way, and she has to get out and walk through the mud. And it's just a really great start to her first day at her new job. Which, I mean, we've all been there, right?
Yeah, that's great. That's great. And then she's curious about the woman who lives in the manor and Lady Arabella.
Mhm.
What happens when V tries to meet her new boss?
So Lady Arabella or Lady Lassie is a bit of a recluse, a sort of mysterious figure who stays in the house and doesn't at any point try to introduce herself to V, refuses to meet with her, and sort of hides away. So it leads to this curiosity of as soon as you know there's a secret, you want to scratch that itch, don't you? And find out what's going on. So even though V's not really, or she tells herself she's not a very nosy person, it becomes a bit of an obsession for her. Who is this strange woman who's employed me of all people? Why doesn't she leave the house? Why does she keep such weird habits and times? There's lots of very specific things and rules that she keeps to. And yeah, it just spirals into this
Well,
this obsession.
and it turns out that Arabella believes that there's a curse killing her family one by one. How does V deal with that? And how does she get all wrapped up into this woman's obsession? Or
Yeah,
I
so
don't want to spoil it.
I wanted to write V as a initially a very grounded, down to earth character. So, not the sort of person who would believe in curses. But yes, in this intense environment where it's very isolated and rural, and all you've got to interact with are a few people who all believe to various degrees in this terrible curse, it sort of starts to get to her and she starts to think, oh, well, actually, that is a bit odd. Maybe that is something supernatural happening here. So, yeah, it's this sort of creeping horror of could it be real? And as she slowly starts to not necessarily believe, but understand and then believe in it.
Okay. And I mean, you write luscious metaphors.
Thank you.
One of them, V, imagine Arabella in this big manor all by herself, and you say that she just seems to you to be rattling around in all that space like the last match in a box. How, how did you learn such imaginative prose?
Well, I think it's as as with all good authors, from reading widely and taking lots of inspiration from that. I mean, I also did do creative writing as a degree, so that was sort of my subject of study, which I hope helped.
Yeah.
I had a tutor on my creative writing course who he gave me some advice that I always remember, which was that whenever you're writing, you have to have sparks of joy throughout. So that's what I like to keep in mind and think about, that when you're writing description, you've got to have something that's a
Oh,
fun
yeah,
metaphor or something like that to keep the readers engaged.
that's very good. I like that. And you also laden this novel with philosophy, like you describe V's attempt to get a fresh start, cautioning herself that, let's see, what you're running from always catches up with you.
Mm.
Do you find that true?
Well, I think that even if it doesn't catch up with you necessarily, literally, the fact that you're running from it means that it's always there in the back of your mind. So, and that happens a lot with the characters in the Slow and Secret Poison, is that actually, even if there isn't anything out to get them, even if there isn't necessarily a curse, the way that they're fixated on those things that they're trying to escape from sort of comes back to bite them because of that fixation.
Very good. And what is V running from herself, or should we not talk about that?
It's a bit of a spoiler, but to put it in vague terms, um, we sort of start to understand that there's a bit of a legal case that happened involving her parents and the last place that they were all employed at. So, we learn throughout what the details of that were and how V was or was not involved in it. But something happened at the last house that they all worked at together, and now her parents are out of the picture somewhere, and she's here all on her own. So
Okay, yeah. This is your second novel. The first one called Spitting Gold. Was this book harder for you to write? The second one, or
it was
easier?
definitely it was definitely faster to write. The Spitting Gold took me about 9 or 10 years to finish. I mean, I wasn't working on it the whole time, obviously, but I kept coming
Ooh.
back to it. And then I think having written that, I knew that I could finish a book, and it would sort of be, good enough to be a real book. So I definitely have more momentum with the Sun of Secret Poison. And I think in some ways that shows it's definitely um, a bit sort of snappier. I mean, that's what my mum said to me. She said, that one took me much less time to read. It's much better. Great review.
The story is told from two viewpoints, V's and Arabella's,
Mm,
and also you uh, jump between times, 1920, 1923, 25.
mm.
Were those time shifts and shifts in viewpoint difficult for you?
It's definitely difficult keeping track of the time shifts and what's happening when and how old everyone is and where they are in their lives. But they don't necessarily impact the main story, so that was a bit easier. And
Okay.
yeah, in terms of the different tones of voices, I didn't find it that difficult actually because I had very clearly in my head what the different sort of voice styles were between the two characters. So with V, I
Right.
found this voice that's got quite blunt sentences, lots of sort of sentence fragments rather than and full sentences, and that was sort of reflecting that down to earth kind of no nonsense personality that I wanted her to have. And then with Arabella, it was a lot more uh, overblown and emotional and intense. So I think finding that early on when writing it really helped me to get into those two characters.
Right, right. Well, what sort of research did you have to do for this book?
This is a really funny one actually because so it's set in Wiltshire, which is where I'm from originally. I don't live there anymore, but that's where I grew up. So I thought to myself, well, I won't if I set it where I grew up, I barely won't have to do any research because I already know it all. And then I realized that, of course, the 1920s was a while ago now. So that's where a lot of the research came in. It was things like what was that interwar period like? What were people wearing? What technology existed? And I read a lot of books and watched a lot of films and telly set in that period. But even so, it was difficult sometimes to answer the questions of things like, I know that electricity has been invented, but did they have it in rural Wiltshire at that time? And in the end, I ended up regretting to asking my grandmother, do you remember when you were growing up in Wiltshire? Did you have plumbing? And she would say, oh well, no, we didn't have hot water. Okay, well, if she didn't have hot water in whatever it was, the 40s, then in the 20s they wouldn't either. So that was very helpful to have a sort of insider
That's
knowledge.
great. That's great. That's great. You don't have to answer this, but did you use AI in any way to do some of your research?
I didn't actually know. I mean, I think part of it is that I started writing this
Yeah.
before the big AI boom, but I don't know that I would necessarily trust it because, for example, my sister's very into AI. She likes to use it for a lot of things. And she
Uh-huh.
read this book and she phoned me up and she said, Carmella, I found a mistake that you made. The National Trust, who you mention in the book, didn't exist back then. And I thought to myself, well, I read a whole book about it, and they did. I said, oh, where did you get that from? She said, well, I asked ChatGPT, and it said it didn't. So I think you maybe have to take it with a pinch of salt and still do some additional research on top of it. It's a good cautionary tale, I think.
Well, I'm proud of you for keeping it real. This story is about female relationships and identity. What would you like for readers to take away from this story?
Ooh, I think. I think that for me, it is about female relationships and identity, but I think the sort of the point of tension maybe between the two characters is also about their gap in social class, and I think it's maybe the way that in feminism there are different intersections and ways that um, ways that people's lives differ even when you're all women, for example. Um,
Hmm.
so I think, yeah, like there's differences in life experiences between Arabella and V, and they can, form a relationship on top of that. But then there's a lot of tension in that relationship from what those differences look like. I think, yeah, that sort of thing of women are all varied people. We're not all the same, even though we all share that, one thing in common about our identity. That's all something I'm trying to keep in mind when I'm writing about any characters, is that you want them all to be very different and to have different sort of life flavors and
Sure.
personalities.
Well, you were mentored by best-selling author Sarah Moss, and
Yes,
you also worked in libraries, and I'll bet that you are a voracious reader.
I do. It's true. I do like to read. Guilty as charged.
With that background, did that help you find an agent? Who are your agents, and can you tell us a little bit about them,
Yeah.
or
So,
how it was to work with you? With you.
yeah, my agents are Rachel and Neely at the Mushins Agency in the UK, and then I've got Ginger Clark Literary in the US. So I've got two, which I'm very lucky to have. And in terms of finding them, so I came to Rachel first, and I think that having that knowledge of what books were out there and what books were similar to what I was writing was very helpful because it meant that I could, first of all, go who are the agents for those authors and make my list of agents to reach out to. So I know that that's the kind of thing that they're interested in. And then when I was submitting my pitches to agents, I could say, oh, it sits here in the market alongside these authors. So
Uh,
I think it helped target me and focus me.
sure, sure. And how many edits did you have to go through before this book was ready to shop to publishers?
Oh, well, for this one, it was A Slow and Secret Poison was under contract. So for my first book, I signed a two-book contract.
Mm.
So the draft that I submitted to my editor for the deadline was it wasn't a first draft because I had sort of written a first draft and then I let my fiance read it, and she gave me some feedback. So then I took that in. So I'd say it was maybe a second draft, but then it went through a few more changes after that with an expert pair of eyes on top of it.
Sure, sure. Um, A Slow and Secret Poison goes on sale in February 2026. What emotions are you feeling about the book launch? Are you excited or scared or?
Yeah, I'm very excited. I mean, it looks amazing. The actual book itself, the jacket's so beautiful. I'm really, really pleased with that. And we're
Oh,
at the point now where, some early readers are getting their arcs on NetGalley or physical arcs. So I'm starting to see a bit of that, people tagging me on Instagram, for example, and it's building the excitement. So yeah, I'm
ah,
very, very curious to find out how it lands. And I'm also
yeah.
curious. I had an Instagram message from a friend today who's an American who's in America, who messaged me saying, "How much do I need to know about British history to understand this book?" And I said, "Oh, nothing, I don't think, but I'm very
Yeah.
curious now to see whether there's going to be any interesting gaps or things that I think are second nature that um, a US audience is
Right.
gonna have to learn about."
So, so what are you working on next?
At the moment, I'm working on a book about alchemy, so that's another of my interests alongside, the first book was Spirit Mediums, the second book is Curses. So yeah, alchemy is another one of those things that borders between reality and magic that yeah, it's fun to dig into. So I've been researching that.
Okay. And finally, do you have any advice for people who are trying to break into this tough publishing market?
Yeah, I think going back to what I was saying about finding my agent, I think that really understanding what the market is and what books your book is similar to, so that you can understand how to present it and how to pitch it to people. If you can hook it onto something that's already successful or that has a specific audience in mind, then I think it's a much easier sell to agents and to publishers because you've sort of done that work for them.
Right. That's true. Okay. Well, Carmela Lowkis, it's so nice to talk to you today.
Yes, thanks so much for having me.